Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're not familiar with my channel, I combine research, knowledge, and experience to give you videos on topics that moms and women truly care about. In this video, I'm going to talk about why the first year of having a baby can be the hardest on a marriage and my top tips for keeping your relationship strong and healthy during that first year. So my sister-in-law told me when I was pregnant that the first year of having a baby is the hardest on a marriage, and I think that that was absolutely true for us after being married for over 10 years and having a baby pretty late in the game. There's several reasons that make the first year with a baby really hard. And one is the hormone changes. So there's a lot of fluctuating hormones during pregnancy and then after a baby comes as your body acclimates to all these different changes that are going on. With the hormone changes, obviously can come moodiness, anxiousness, tiredness, and irritability, which can put a damper on a healthy relationship and just make things so much more challenging. Postpartum depression is really common due to hormonal changes, but even if you don't have full-blown postpartum depression, which I did not have, I felt that the hormone changes did make everything a lot more difficult, especially in a stressful time. Another reason why having a baby in that first year is so challenging is because there's a lot more work added to both of your plates. And this addition of work gives you less time for yourself and less time to give attention and time to your spouse. Additionally, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom or the full-time caretaker of a baby, a lot of times you have to take a step back when it comes to your career or things that you're working towards, your goals and aspirations. And that can be really hard when reflecting on our life purpose, especially if you're a really goal-driven person. You know, having a baby just makes you hit pause on that, and that can be really challenging for our mental health.
When I researched what makes marriage so hard after having a baby, the first thing that popped up on Google was this quote. Sociologists theorize that mothers are more unhappy with their marriages after they have children because they tend to take on more of a second shift of work, childcare, and housework, and begin to feel that the relationships are no longer fair. I could definitely empathize with this, being a working mom and going after work only a week after having a baby. Some additional hardships that couples face after having a baby are increased stress due to domestic duties doubling, lack of sleep and time for self-care, differences in parenting style, financial stress, lack of sex, and body insecurities after pregnancy.
So now let's jump into the tips. So these tips can be beneficial for both husband, wife, mom, and dad. So if this video is helpful to you, definitely share it with your spouse if you think it would give them a good perspective. I'm gonna go through the tips from the perspective of the mom. So let's jump right in. First off, understand your roles. Now, if you're nursing and you're a mother, you are most likely going to be spending the majority of the time with your baby, whether you're working or not working. And that can be really challenging when you don't feel like the responsibilities are split evenly. But you need to understand that mom's role naturally, again, especially if you're nursing, is going to be the main caretaker, even more so in those first 3 to 4 months. So my husband wasn't spending that much time with the baby, which did bother me, but I needed to take a step back and reflect and see that, you know, my son needs me. He's nursing a lot. He's also using that for comfort, which in turn did make my main role and responsibility caretaker. And the role and responsibility that my husband took on was obviously to bring stability and income to our family. And both roles are important and they aren't going to be those set roles forever. So just understanding that both of us had important roles, we were taking on what naturally fit best for our family, and they weren't necessarily going to stay the same forever. Number two is to acknowledge that the overall workload has probably substantially increased. So you may feel like you're doing 150% of the work that you were doing prior, and that's probably true. But you need to understand that the other person also feels like they're doing 150% of the work as well. And that's just because the overall workload has increased. Obviously there's the caretaking, there's the cleaning. I felt like I was constantly cleaning up after the baby. Every single room we were in left a mess. So there is just so much more that needs to be done, and understanding that both parties are doing more of the work. And that brings me to my next tip. If you don't feel like your husband or partner is pulling their weight or doing what needs to be done, simply give them specific things and ask for help. So for example, it would really help me out if you made dinner tonight, or it would really help me out if you took out the trash and cleaned up the garage today. Because as women, and I know this for myself, my husband would be like, oh, do you need help with anything? And I'm like, well, there's so many things that I need help with right now. Like, how can you not see that our house is a mess, the dishes need to be done, dinner needs to be made, and that is just naturally how a lot of men are. So don't be scared to give specific jobs, especially if your husband is asking what you need help with. My next tip is to praise instead of criticize. So just because you have been spending a lot of time with the baby doesn't mean that everything your husband does is wrong. A good rule of thumb is if you're not genuinely concerned about the safety of your child, let your husband do it his way. And if you want him to do it differently, try to say, hey babe, can I give you some pointers on that? Or what's really helped me when doing that is X, Y, and Z. And then when he is doing something really well, make sure to praise instead of criticizing. So you definitely want to give more praise than criticism, because doing that positive reinforcement, offering help rather than just, ordering that it be done a certain way, is going to promote your husband to spend even more time with the baby and not be afraid to actually help you when it comes to caretaking. My next tip is to try to put everything into perspective. Now, the first year with baby is supposed to be such a wonderful time, but it can also be very, very stressful and hard. And oftentimes I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe people have multiple kids. Or they're raising this kid as a single mom. So what really helped me when I felt very stressed and overwhelmed and tired and even angry sometimes was thinking, I have it really good. Like, I have a husband that's helping me. I have the financial stability to hire help if we needed it. And, I'm not doing this alone. We've prepared our whole lives for this. So if you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, even though it can be hard, just try to put it in perspective that you are probably better off than a lot of other new moms, and you can do this. My last tip is to have sex. And honestly, especially right after you have the baby, probably the last thing you want to do is be intimate with your partner. But when you are ready, just give that time to your husband. It's something that men really do need a lot more than women, and it is going to make your relationship better, and it's going to keep everything healthy, and it's going to make you both feel more connected. So definitely take that time to be intimate with each other, even though there is a lack of time that's available. So that wraps up my tips for keeping your marriage healthy in that first year with baby. I hope this was helpful. If you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it really does get easier, especially after that year mark, and it just gets more and more fun. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh my gosh, having a baby is making my life absolutely crazy, it does get better and better as you go. So be sure to comment if you have any questions. I'm sure everyone would like to read, other people's responses to this video. I try to get back to people within 1 to 2 days, and I do a lot of videos on mom and women topics. So if you like videos on, health, beauty, fitness, life, and relationships, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next one.